Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February edition of the National At-Home Dad Network's monthly webinar series. I'm here today with Traci Mausolf. Traci and I had been talking a little bit about mindful parenting, and it's something that I've begun using around my home and thought that it would be something that we could share with everybody because Lord knows that we all run into our little foibles and frustrations with the kids these days. So I reached out to Traci via LinkedIn, and she was able to make arrangements to be with us here today. And without further ado, let me turn it over to Traci.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here talking to all of you wonderful dads out there who are taking the time and investing the time in being at home with your kids and everything. Um, like Matt said, we've been talking a lot about mindfulness, and today I wanted to talk about managing emotions and communicating needs with our kids and how to do that in a mindful way. And I think that that is really one of the biggest things, that if there's one thing you can do to have a more mindful life with your kids and to create a little bit more joy and balance in your life, that's one of the things that is the biggest thing of all. So my company is Thrive with Mindfulness, and we help parents to find more balance, joy, and confidence in their parenting through using the use of mindfulness as one of the key tools. So today we're going to talk about our emotional needs as humans, and we're going to talk about how to create space for ourselves when our needs are not met. We're going to talk about the actual what that is like to create that space, and we're going to practice creating some space today. And we're going to talk about ways to communicate our needs in a compassionate way. All right. So
Absolutely.
there are four basic human needs when we're talking about emotions. So we're not talking about like the physical needs, we're talking about emotional needs, and that's attention. All people need attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. And when those needs are not met in some way, you'll notice people becoming agitated, kids will act out, and it can present itself in a wide range of behaviors, depending on your age and where you are in your developmental stages. Attention just being showing someone that they're worth your time, that they're worth your presence. Affection, just showing people that you're worth being connected with, that you're important. It can be just a simple pat on the shoulder, a hug. It doesn't have to be just full-on presence where you're making eye contact and all of that. It can just really be something as simple as a gentle touch or a smile. Uh, Appreciation, showing someone that you value their contributions, no matter how small. That's something that's really, really important. And just acceptance, showing that you accept someone, that you appreciate them in every moment. They're good, they're bad, and they're positive and up and down moments, as it will. So those are
I
the
know for sure that myself, and I don't speak for all dads, but I know I've heard it from several that, we often feel unappreciated by our kids. Um, you know, uh, you hit a certain age and you start to feel like an unpaid Uber driver.
Oh boy, I tell you. I really hear that. Pardon me. I'm just adjusting my iPad because it has my notes on it and
Oh,
everything.
okay.
I'm sure that I cover everything, and so I've looked a little awkward. I apologize. So yeah, it's true. And so when our kids really act out, um, it's not it's not them just being annoying. It's them not being able to articulate a certain need. And so I think, what something that's really typical, and I've watched this happen several times, and um, there was a, I watched it happen with a little girl in a restaurant um, a few months back in the summer, and she was running around and she did not like what her mom told her to do. She wanted to just run around, play, and do whatever, and I think the mom probably just told her no, but she became so upset and she started, having a full-blown meltdown right there in the it was like an outdoor eating area.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just painful watching the mom go through this, like not knowing what to do and everything. And she just reacted very harshly and carried her out on the shoulder. And, it was just fearful. Yeah, we have probably all seen something like that or experienced it ourselves. So,
Pretty sure we've all carried a kid out of the park or somewhere like a sack of potatoes.
yeah, exactly. And so I think when we get to the point where we can notice that's happening, where we're something is happening and we need it to stop right away, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is one to notice that is happening, that oh, this is going bad, and I am feeling it all over my body. So what I'd like you to do right now is to just think about one of those instances that you've had and really notice. Can you remember it in enough detail that you can notice the feelings that are arising? I mean, I can remember I personally had an incident with my son when he was little, and when I remember back on that, I can still feel the tension in my chest area and the tingling in my fingers. So if you think about that, in that key moment, that's where the stimulus happens. That's the trigger point. Now, when we get to that point, we can either immediately react and react in an emotional kind of way, just without thinking, or we can choose to create a little bit of space through a breathing exercise that I'm going to show you in a minute. And then we can respond with a little more composure. We can respond with some positive words, and which I'll show you also in a moment. Okay, so that act of creating that space, it's the greatest gift you can give yourself, because you invest in your response instead of an immediate reaction, and that's going to build trust with your child, and that's going to build deeper connection. And I think you'll see it transform your relationships with your family. So the
And I can
breathing.
see that because, in general, in that moment, the gut instinct is to act quickly and put a stop to that tantrum. Like that's the priority, not necessarily taking that break.
Yes, exactly that. And that break is so key, not only for yourself to respond better, but it's also modeling for your child that, oh, I know how to calm myself down, and I can do this cool breathing trick, and it will calm myself down, and they're going to do what you do. That's, the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It couldn't be more true. And so kids are going to model that. And so I'm just going to stand up, and what I'd like you to do is put your fingers together like this, and I'd like you to put them on your belly, like right diaphragm, okay? And what we're going to do is we're just going to practice breathing. I don't know if the camera can really see that. I'll raise my hands up a bit. Um, and when we breathe in, we want to keep our shoulders nice and loose. And we want to pretend like there's a balloon in our belly that we're going to fill up through our inhale. Okay, so just go ahead and practice that. Breathing in and breathing out. Notice what happens to your fingers. Breathing in and breathing out. Notice the fingers separating on the inhale and coming together on the exhale. Now we're going to take that one step further, and we're going to do this to the count of 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in and we're going to count to 4, hold our breath for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, and hold it out for a count of 4. And we call that like a box cycle, 16 seconds. Okay? So here we go. So get that picture in your head again, that really triggering moment. Notice how that feels. And now, doing our inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding it. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Holding it. 2, 3, 4. We'll do one more cycle. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. Now just breathing in and out and noticing if you felt anything different happening in your body. Did you notice a calm down?
It is definitely hard to maintain like that level of tension, so to speak, while focusing that hard on my breathing.
Yeah, yeah, good. That's the whole point. And so when we calm down, we can come to the situation in a completely different space than we were just 16 seconds ago or 32 seconds ago. And that's the whole point. So to be able to react with more compassion, we want to go back now and think about, so what was the trigger? So this is going to be an individual answer depending on what you had in your mind. But whatever the trigger was, it falls under one of those categories: attention, affection, appreciation, or acceptance. And those are umbrella terms as well. So more detailed emotions will fit under one umbrella, so to speak.
Well, I'll volunteer to give you an example. One of the big frustrations that's going on in my house is my youngest is 5, almost 6, going on like 28. One of the biggest problems that we have here in the house, and it's a habit we've been desperately trying to break him of, is that it's a combination of just interrupting and then just talking over people.
Mm.
Even if they'll be in the middle of a sentence and when something occurs to him, it just comes out instantly. And I can't lie, it really, really pisses me off. I mean, there's no nice way of putting it. It really bothers me. It's just one of those things.
Mm. So that one, let's categorize this one, Matt.
Okay.
So he's interrupting. So is that about attention? Is it about affection, appreciation, or acceptance? What would you say?
I think it's multiples. I mean, part of it is attention
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like, he's not paying attention to what other people are saying because he's talking over them.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, a lot of it is just appreciation because I feel like it shows a complete lack of respect
Yeah. Yeah.
for like what other people have to say.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. So when we know that this is about attention
Mm-hmm.
and appreciation, we can respond in a much more accurate way. We can look our child in the eye. Now, you've mentioned that your child is 5,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very typical if you have young children that they might see that you're upset, that you're going through this calming thing, and then they might go off and run around and, like try to avoid, because they know
Squirrel.
that the moment of reckoning is coming.
Right.
And so they will react, and that's to be expected. So that's something to also keep in mind is, okay, this is developmentally appropriate. So getting them and saying, I only want to talk. You're not in trouble. I just want to talk. And you might even want to take their hands and look them in the eye and say, look, it's really okay. But when you interrupt me, or when you interrupt mommy, or when you interrupt your sister, or
Your brother,
whoever,
what, whoever.
when you interrupt the speaker, it makes them feel sad. It makes me feel sad. It makes the speaker feel sad. It makes them feel like they aren't important, like their words aren't important. And it's our job as listeners to really listen and wait our turn. Can you understand that? And it might take a few times of having to repeat that, and just, parenting, it really requires a lot of patience and
Well,
everything.
and repetition is key.
Absolutely. But when we repeat those words and they land back in this is what, this is how it makes me feel. And then you wait and you see, will they respond? Sometimes you might even say, I need you um not interrupt. I need you to show that you can wait your turn. Or it would be appropriate for you to maybe apologize to the person for interrupting. And you can give them the words to share that they acknowledge that they made a mistake. And so then you can teach them to go to the person and say, gosh, I interrupted you and I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to be disrespectful today, or I didn't mean to make you feel sad, depending on how old they are and what they understand at the time. But those are just some really practical ways that you can use mindfulness and mindful communication to really enhance your parenting experience. We're all doing the best we can as parents. And we are just not perfect. It's just the way we are by design. Humans are not perfect beings. And so any little tool that we can use to enhance our experience and to help us stay more in balanced and more confident and and find that joy in parenting, gosh, it's worth the investment. And so, yeah, that's that's a little bit about that. Do you have any questions for me?
I'm looking. As of right now, I don't see any that have popped up. I mean, I have a few questions for you just in general.
Yeah, sure.
One of them is, and again, the box breathing is something that, I've heard from other people, and it's something that I've tried really hard to incorporate into my parenting and into my life. But honestly, in the moment, it is so hard to just be able to make that abrupt stop and
Mm-hmm.
slow things down enough to be able to make that clear and concise communication happen.
Mm,
And again, like you were describing the woman in the restaurant,
yeah,
as somebody who spent most of his career before becoming a stay-at-home dad, I was a chef.
yeah.
So like to me, the idea of that child freaking out and running around that just makes my skin crawl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it
Yeah.
really does. At a certain age, we literally just stopped going to restaurants with the kids. They 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 aren't at a point where they can hold still long enough to sit down in the restaurant and eat.
Mm-hmm.
We're My wife and I have talked about, bringing them back into the equation. Now that my son is getting a little bit more socialized, he's almost finished with kindergarten now, which helps. He's gotten a little bit more used to being around large groups of people and following directions from teachers. My daughter, on the other hand, just turned 9, and I mean, she's ready to do it now. But obviously, the three of us can't go out and leave the 5-year-old at home by himself. They frown on that kind of thing. But that's one, and then the other is obviously this is something that you have to get your partner on board with.
Yes.
Um, if you're doing it and your partner isn't, that can be an issue. Now it's easier for me in my family because their mom and their dad are living together. We're still married, so my partner is right here with me. I know that a lot of our dads are co-parenting. A lot of our dads, relationships come in all different shapes and sizes. So, what advice do you have for communicating with that partner about using some of these techniques, and more importantly, like how you can get them on board, and so that they understand the importance of this, and that it's not just some quackery that you're trying to try out for the day,
Yeah.
and then potentially have them completely undo it.
Yeah, that's a really good question and a very, very relevant one for a lot of parents out there. And what I would suggest, and again, it not every suggestion works for every family, but um, anyone who I would think, I would hope that both parties would have a vested interest in the well-being of the child. And I'm sure that in almost all of those cases, it would be so. So if we focus on the well-being of the child and and the challenges that the child is having, whatever they may be, and if both parties are experiencing the same challenges, then to say, whatever's happened between us, it's happened, it's done, but right now we have this to solve together. We made this child together, or we adopted this child together, we're fostering this child, or whatever the situation may be. um,
But
let's
we
let's
need to
team
make
up,
sure
let's
that,
collaborate, and yes,
yeah,
exactly, let's work together on behalf of our child or children. And I offer an 8-week course that where I encourage both of the main caregiving people. So if it's a co-parenting situation, or if it's both parents in the same household, I encourage both to attend this course together, because what that will do is it'll bring you both on the same page, and you'll both be speaking the same language, and you'll both be able to communicate to your child or children in the same speak, so to speak.
yeah.
And so I think that that's a really, really powerful thing. And there aren't very many courses out there like this. I work in cohorts, so little small groups of parents, where you develop a a small trusting group where we work through these things, we share challenging situations, we practice different techniques, not just box breathing, but lots of other techniques and strategies. And we work a lot on our own inner critic, and taming the inner critic within us. And I think that it's a really, really valuable thing. And I would love, anyone who wants to get more information to be able to um, contact me. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. My website, thrivewithmindfulness.com. Anything else that I can answer, Matt? Did
Um,
I I answer your question okay?
Yeah, no, no, you answered my question really well. And again, full disclosure, I will point out that my wife and I did sit down and do a session with Tracy earlier this month,
Yeah,
and I have been trying. I have been trying. I won't pretend that I'm perfect or that I've gotten it right every time. But there have been some marked, better communication, a lot more concise. I find myself getting riled up a lot less just by taking that breather to step away if I have to.
awesome.
Just to take a little bit of time and the rest of it. Um, the big one for me that is difficult, and again, this may be a generational thing, is I'm an older dad. I turn 51 the day after tomorrow. And I'm at home with a 5-year old and a 9-year old. When I was 5 years old, I mean, my dad was probably still in his 30s. Being an older father and coming from that other generation, there wasn't a lot of explanation as to the hows and whys from my parents. There was a lot of because I said so. What probably my least favorite was because I'm the father and you're the child, as a reason for why something had to be a certain way. And I've been trying really hard for the last 9 years not to be that parent. Now, obviously, there are times when you don't have time for that full explanation. If it's why can't you run out into the street against the light? I'm going to
No time.
grab your arm and we're going to act on that immediately. But,
Absolutely.
I've been trying to communicate better, and it has really made a difference. Pointing out little things like the whole, it makes me feel like you don't think I'm important enough to listen to when you wander off halfway through my sentence, or, when you interrupt me in the middle of when I'm telling you something.
Mm,
But one of the things that we've added behind that on our end is, we've begun asking them, how would it make you feel if I did that to you? Because one of the things that we've been trying to instill in our kids a whole lot is just empathy.
yeah.
Um, like, unlike a lot of families in the world, we come from a place of privilege. We live in a household where I can afford to stay home and be a full-time stay-at-home dad. We are afforded certain privileges, and we want to raise our children to be empathic to the fact that not everybody has all the advantages that they have. So working towards that empathy has been a huge driving force for us. Um, Granted, not easy. Not easy installing empathy into, 5 and 7 and 8-year olds. Not a whole lot going on in the front part of the brain at that age. There's a whole lot of the world revolves around me, but we've been making small amounts of progress, which, has been a huge help. Now,
Mm,
we talked about the whole attention and, appreciation. Now, the other two were acceptance
and
and
affection.
affection.
Mm,
Can you give an example that might tag into two of those other two umbrellas?
sure. Let me think. So we have attention and appreciation and acceptance. So one of the things I didn't share about myself was that I taught for 27 years before starting Thrive with Mindfulness,
Oh,
and
bless you.
uh, and acceptance was one of those really tricky ones because from time to time I would have a student in my class who just wasn't accepted by the rest of the people in the class. And so that was always a really tricky one. A Honing in on the behaviors that that particular student was doing that were making people not want to make contact and have that relationship. So private conversations about, I wonder what happened just now. I just noticed something that happened, and I'm wondering if maybe you can see, maybe you have an idea of why that person didn't want to play with you just now. Maybe they took something, took a rope, a jump rope, or maybe they ran and took the ball. Like if it was a ball game of some sort, playing soccer on the field or whatever. If somebody took the ball and ran with it, well, the kids aren't going to like that, are they? And then they might ostracize that person because, hey, you're a jerk, right? And that's how kids think. They're so quick to judge and make those judgment calls. So, um, getting the kids to notice those different things. You might it's uncomfortable at times, but to say, hey, this is all about learning and
Mm-hmm.
how we can be better and how we can make friends. And when we make mistakes, we have to learn from them. And so that's my job as the parent, as the teacher, to show you where that went wrong. So that might be a way to handle that in a way in a nurturing kind of way and say, okay, so you blew it, but maybe you shouldn't run and take somebody's ball, or maybe you shouldn't hit that person or take their pencil or whatever it is.
Well, another one, again, drawing on my own experience as a parent, as well as my experience as a child, is that my daughter is incredibly smart. And I'm not just saying that as a dad, like, she's crazy smart and it terrifies me. But one of the problems that we've run into her is that she tends to correct people. And she tends to correct people when it's not necessarily needed. Like if somebody mispronounces a word and I keep trying to instill in her, but you knew what they were talking about, right? Well, yeah. Well, then why did you correct them? Was that to make you feel better? And honestly, in her mind, she's doing it out of kindness. Like she's trying to help. In her mind, she's like, "Oh, well, I just don't want them to make that mistake again. I'm trying to help them be better." And it's tough trying to help her understand that sometimes that's not always appreciated.
Mm,
If somebody can't do something, running over and telling them a better way to do it um, sometimes is a more negative thing than a positive thing. Um,
I think I think you're onto something there, because when kids, it has to do with context, doesn't it?
it, yeah.
You could, one of the things that works really well that I've done with kids a lot is just to talk to them about when to tell their friend or when to tell someone, so wait until you have a private moment and say, you know what, you're right. And I think it's great that you want to help that person. And here's the appropriate time to do it. So they can feel satisfied that they helped and that they did the right thing by helping that person. But it's all about thinking about the win-win, isn't it? Like, how can you win by helping and they win by getting the help that they need, but without being embarrassed or whatever?
And that's the key is that being able to do it without making someone else feel, for lack of a better term, less.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
as far as affection goes, well, I think we all know what that is. We all know that feeling. At least once a week, in the varying dad groups that I am in, there's invariably some dad who's complaining about the fact that suddenly they are chopped liver.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
I,
you
I
you
see
you
that in the
stay.
mom group too.
Well, I mean, you're home with them all day. You're the one that's doing. You're the one that's there in the trenches all day long, and your partner comes home and all of a sudden it's like you are background, and oh my goodness, mom or whoever is home and they're special because they've been gone all day.
Yeah.
And intellectually, like, we all know that because we spend so much time as primary caregivers with our kids, they become accustomed to us always being there.
Hmm.
But there's a big difference between intellectually understanding something and that gut wrenching feeling of just having them be so much more excited. Or something goes wrong and instantly it's, mom, mom, in our house.
Hmm.
And it's like I'm standing right. I am also capable of applying a band-aid, uh, and that really is a tough one. What advice do you have for making the sting of that a little less?
That one, that goes into sort of the self-compassion part of mindfulness and building a practice, a daily practice, and reminding yourself that you are enough. And I can't tell you how many times I have sat in a mindfulness meditation and just repeated in my own mind, I am enough. I am enough. And, telling myself that until I believe it, because there have been days, and I know everybody has those days, I'm not the only one, but, you know, where we don't feel like we're enough and we do feel like we're chopped liver. And hey, what about me? I want some attention too. And so I think that developing that really, really strong belief that we are our own best friend is just so important. It will be a rock that will get you through really tough times. So, but mindfulness is a practice. It's not, it's something you do daily. You do, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day. It's like training for a marathon, but it's a lifelong practice. It's a lifelong process, and you never arrive. You just keep learning, and you just keep learning so much about yourself and so much about the people who you love, and how to connect better with other people. It transforms lives, and that's why I do what I do.
Well, that's
Mm.
awesome. That really is. Traci, I cannot thank you enough for coming to join us. I'm going to put out a final call to see if anybody else out there has any questions that they'd like to throw out in the chats. I know we have folks watching with us, but I haven't seen any questions. So obviously, we're doing a good job of answering them before they get asked.
Great.
For those of you who aren't watching us live, because I know that, again, as parents, timing anything is tough. So it can be difficult. We do post up all of our webinars on our YouTube page. They're available for anybody to watch. The history of them goes back, I believe I'm in my third year of doing these at this point, which is kind
Okay.
of shocking to me. Please don't judge the early ones. It took a lot of practice.
It's a learning process, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But please feel free to go peruse those. I will say thank you, Traci, for coming to join us. Thank you to the
Thank
National At Home Dad Network for allowing me to host this webinar. Um, we've got a bunch of great things that we do. There's a weekly podcast. There's a bi-weekly Dad Lounge, which I highly recommend for the dads out there. It's just a great place to go and hang out. It's started off during COVID as a Zoom hangout so that we all wouldn't go insane. And it kind of took on a life of its own, and it's still going to this day. We got a couple of mental health, like peer support groups that meet twice a week. But most of the information you can find on our website, which is athomedad.org. Um, we're a volunteer organization and supported very, very much by our members. So thank you to all of our members out there who are supporting us. And if you believe in our mission, please pop by the website. Membership is $35 a year. It's a pittance. And it makes a huge difference in the work that we can do. So, on behalf of the National at Home Dad Network, thank you for joining us, and thank you for everybody who watched this. And we will see you guys next month. Still working out on scheduling, but we should have a guest who's going to come on and talk about following your own passions while juggling that with being a parent. And this guy is an inspiration. So hopefully you guys will all join us when we see him next time. Until then, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you soon.